everybody. Hopefully you're doing well this Friday evening. I know I am. I'm actually doing fairly decent tonight. We'll see how tonight, or what tonight brings. Hello. We are talking about what do animals do before a hurricane. It wasn't eye-opening preparing for this, but it was interesting. But I think we should probably just get into it. I found a little bit. So, United States just had 2 hurricanes pretty much back to back within, I think, a week's time. Or maybe 2 weeks' time, something like that. I don't know. With basically, anyway, I never had to prepare for a hurricane myself, but I can imagine it's probably not a fun experience. If you wait too long to prepare, you run into a multitude of problems. And from where I'm standing, it looks pretty scary to be in a place during a hurricane. But today, we're not going to look at it from a human side of preparation. Nope. We are jumping into the world of animals to see how some of Florida's more famous critters prepare for a hurricane. And we'll talk about how these animals handle a hurricane. FJB. What does that mean? I'm really itching to try this new system. Fire Joe Black? I don't know. We're going to be talking about animals who can't prepare for hurricanes too much and how hurricanes maybe affects them in some cases. Whatever time we have left, we're going to transition that into just chatting. So let's talk about sharks. Humans depend on scientific instruments to tell them where and when a hurricane is going to strike. We use them to tell us how strong a hurricane is going to be, how fast their wind speeds are, but sharks and other animals, they don't have that. But sharks have pressure-sensitive sensors, and they can sense the change in pressure. So when barometric pressure drops, it also causes a related hydrostatic pressure drop. Hydrostatic being water pressure. There could also be changes in the current, and if they're on the outside bank of the storm, then the rain coming down can actually cause changes in the salinity of the ocean. And this causes the sharks to know, hey, something is definitely not right. And the sharks will either move into deeper waters or they stay where they're at. Or they might even go away. Now, scientists have monitored tagged sharks before a hurricane strikes, and we know that they do this. And we also know that they may not come back for up to 13 days after a storm is hit. We did find out, thanks to some sharks in the Bahamas, that larger sharks may actually stay in the area. And not only do they stay in the area, but they may increase in numbers. And what they're doing is they're waiting on the storm to hit so that they can then go in and eat fish and birds that might have been killed or injured during the hurricane. So now that we know a little bit about how sharks do it, let's look at sea turtles. I don't know if you saw pictures or videos of when Hurricane Helene struck, but you might have seen the sand that was swept up onto the land or dropped on the land by the storm. That can cause major problems for turtles. The nest of turtles are dug into the sand on the beach, and in those nests, of course, are laid eggs. Now, the last two storms arrived late in the year, and hatching for sea turtles occurs May through October. Hatching for sea turtles occurs May through October, but hurricane season goes from June through November. So it definitely causes issues for the animals that are waiting for these eggs to hatch. Erosion on beaches can be an issue. Not saying that all the nests are going to be destroyed. That is certainly not the case. But I am saying that it is possible. A storm surge, if it hits in the right area, can actually drown nest. The water that soaks into the sand, if it sits too long, can cause issues for the babies and the eggs. Nests that are had the sand taken off of them can expose the eggs to the water, and if they're in the water swirling around, that not only can it damage the embryo, but of course it can drown it. If the water is on the sand and it goes away pretty quickly, that can actually benefit the nest because it can cool the nest down. Sometimes the sand will get piled up on top of the nest, and when that happens, it can again drop the temperature of the nest. But it also means is that the babies will have to use up more energy getting out of the sand. Now with turtles, we found out that, like sharks, turtles will sometimes dive deeper into the water in order for the storm to wait out the storm. Some will move into other areas where the water is calmer. Another impact that we have seen from sea turtles is babies that are already hatched out. They may be hiding in sargassum weed, which is the type of plant that floats on top of the water. They can actually get washed back onto land by the forces of the water. Foxtrot, Juliet, Bravo. These babies are often fatigued from trying to fight the waters. So now from sea turtles, we are going to jump to dolphins and whales. It is believed that whales and dolphins can detect the salinity. I did not read about that. I didn't see any references to that. But the closest thing I could come to that, we will be discussing in a little bit. So I'm going to hold off on that one. It's believed that whales and dolphins can detect the levels of salt in the ocean as that outer band of the hurricane begins to drop rain. What happens is the hurricane, it's raining over the ocean, and the salt in the water gets more diluted. And it's believed they can actually detect this along with the pressure, and they will leave the area or seek out deeper waters. Now, manatees are a different animal altogether because they're not typically found in the ocean. They're more of a river creature. But what happens is if you're in the rivers during a hurricane, you get the storm surge. And you have the mouth of the river emptying into the ocean. The storm surge will push up the river. And as it pushes up the river, it floods. And if your flood is high enough, you can get these animals, these manatees, in places where they're not supposed to be. And as the water recedes, then the manatees get stranded. And that might be on land, it might be in bodies of water that they don't know. And so they have a harder time getting back to where they actually belong. Calves get separated from their mothers. The storm surge can push pollution into habitats that wasn't there before. It can lead to red tides, which is caused by organisms in the water. Manatees will try to take shelter in mangrove forest where there's a little bit of protection. Sometimes that works out for them, sometimes it doesn't. Alligators are another animal that is pretty famous in Florida. So what happens for alligators? Well, first off, alligators will sink into the water, under the water, and they can actually hold their breath for a while. And they can stay under for about 6 hours, I read. And they will just sit there and wait out the storm. Alligators may also seek out areas where they can get out of the storm. They may do that by hanging out in canals or hiding out in caves. Still, there may be some alligators who get caught up in floods and end up in places where they don't belong, like people's houses. I couldn't find anything on crocodiles, but I imagine they sort of do the same thing as the alligators and just wait it out. Other animals, I'm sure, pick up on the fact that there's a hurricane coming and they leave. So birds will do different things as well. Birds may migrate. If they do migrate, they may migrate early. They may migrate further inland. They may seek out shelters in densely vegetated areas, buildings, trees. They may eat more. They may tuck their bills into their feathers and then get down really, really low. Birds are sensitive to pressure changes, and they may also be able to hear the storm coming in, and so they're going to leave. And we see this with not just hurricanes, but also tsunamis. So questions? Fish will also do the same thing as the sharks. Now, unfortunately, there are going to be animals who can't leave the area, like coral. Things get pretty rough at the bottom of the ocean because, remember, it's more shallow where the coral reefs are, and they can actually get beat up. I've seen where coral breaks during storms, and when it breaks off, it might die. Oysters and stuff, again, you can't really, if you're stuck to a certain area, you can't get out. And so they take a beating as well. snakes and stuff. A little bit harder. They're quite so snakes actually become displaced. They might end up in places again where they're not necessarily welcome. Like your houses, storage sheds, barns, and other buildings. They might end up, and yeah, they're going to be displaced. So things like copperheads, diamondback rattlesnakes, cottonmouths, coral snakes, all of these animals are going to be displaced, and they could end up in places you don't want them. So if you're ever in a hurricane situation, going back into your home, be mindful of the snakes. I don't think they mean to cause a problem, but they're going to be there, and you need to know how to deal with that. I don't know what other animals do. I'm assuming some of them know that it's coming and get out of the way. That is actually all I have for tonight. Which is fine. Gabby, not appreciated. And in fact, oh, thank you, Carol. I think deer can swim. They're not going to stay around. They're going to do their best to get out of that situation. Other animals may head out from there. I don't know. Did you just deleted the message, right, Carol? So our friend may still be here. Okay. Gabby, thank you so much for choosing to spend your valuable time on a Friday night with me. Out of all of the other things that you could be doing, I really appreciate it so much. And in fact, and the fact that you feel like this is a safe place for you to vent your frustrations about Diddy, getting your worries out about life here makes it all even that much better. So thank you for coming. I mean it. Thank you. Yeah, they do. Birds fly inland. Am I having issues because that was discussed? Um But yeah, anytime you guys come in here and want to vent your frustrations about life, yep, it's a new day in this channel. Just remember, I get the last laugh. But you're welcome. You're welcome to stay and blab and vent your frustrations. But again, I get the last laugh. So animals are way more resilient, I think, than people. Like, we have way more to lose. Animals will have minor setbacks. I mean, as far as species go, sea turtles may lose a nest. Other animals up and leave. But they find a way. Whereas people, I've seen so far from the hurricanes, electric cars, I've learned, if they get in contact with salt water, they do. They definitely do. But at the same time, we can detect. I can go onto my weather app and see a storm on the other side of the ocean. There's a storm. Oh, what is its name? Leslie? Out there. It's never going to reach America. Its track looks like it's going into Europe. It's never going to reach here. But we can detect them way out in the ocean. I don't think that storm, the animals around the United States probably aren't going to react to that. But as the hurricane gets closer to shore, before it hits, the animals are reacting to it. I don't know how far away a hurricane has to be for the animals to pick up on it, but definitely before humans. Like, humans may have it like a week in advance. Yeah, you should, but again, let's see if I can find out. Animals may sense the approach of a storm days before the storm arrives. So it depends on the animal. Humans Sadly, they react differently than other people. And even though we are technically animals, we don't really react that well to it. Hello, new person coming in. Hope you're doing well. That's okay. Um, oh my goodness. Oh, tomorrow's live. I don't know. I was tired. I am tired. I tried napping for a half hour and it does me no good. So tomorrow's live is going to be, I think I was trying to say humans react differently than other animals and it just did not come out right. Tomorrow's live, if I'm able to get it worked out, is what native plants are good for cuts. And that could be rather it's antiseptic in nature or antimicrobial or if it stops bleeding. So we're looking at that. Probably means more wonderful pictures depending upon what I can find. Because I'm limited to what I have. So yeah. I'm not going to go too far in advance, but for next week, Tuesday is going to be safe around bats, growing up with animals and being out with nature, and then Zoo to Do, Omaha Henry Dorley Zoo. So that is what is coming up. Live on the other channel, inverts in my collection that aren't insects. That sounds thrilling, huh? Oh, look, there's nobody in live. Huh. No, seriously, it says there's only one watching it. Interesting. Um, no. Maybe, but more than likely, I don't know. We might. I might throw that in. Man, I was hoping Gabby would stick around cuz I want to try out this new system in a real life situation. Basically, the idea for tomorrow, that's not what says. That's not what this says. I don't know what this is. Carol, you gotta explain because I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about, Carol. That's not what this says. I don't know what that means. October 12th, what plants are good for cuts? Be safe around bats. That Saturday is what plants are good for cuts. October 15th, safe around bats. October 18th, growing up with animals and being out with nature. October 19th, Zoo to Do, Omaha Dorley Zoo. It's not being changed. And if you look, yeah, the next live is October 3rd, inverts in my collection that aren't insects. That's exactly what it says. Because you have to scroll up to the first yellow live. No, you don't go by that. None of those dates matter. None of those dates matter. You got to scroll up and see what the first yellow item is. And if you scroll up to October 1st, October 3rd is the next yellow in line. Inverts in my collection that aren't insects is the next live. Because I've taken out Sundays. I'm not dropping the ones that were supposed to be for Sunday just because I made a change. The next live for the other channel is insects in my collection. I realize that. But I just said I'm not taking, I know that. I'm not going by dates on the other channel. Dates do not matter. I'm going in order. The last one we did was sea mammals in my collection. The next live would have been October 3rd. Inverts in my collection that aren't insects. You have to go in order of what's listed. Not by the dates. The only dates that matter are the ones for this channel. Everything else, you have to scroll up to see what the last or the first yellow date is that is not red. Red means it's been done. Yellow means it's yet to be done. So the 17th, there's like there's still three other items before that. I'm not skipping them just because the date's wrong. Not happening. In fact, this weekend I'm taking out dates for the channel. For the other channel because there's no point. The dates bother me anyway. I'll leave dates in for this channel because it's not affected, but yeah, don't go by the dates. It's just going to confuse you. The dates that used to be Sundays, I'm not dumping. They're just being turned into Thursdays. So there's a delay on those dates. You just have to go by and in fact, I need to start taking dates out because obviously it's confusion. Sorry for the quiet. I'm assuming predecessor is either without power or she doesn't have internet. Hopefully there's nothing else wrong. Hello, everybody. Okay, so that should help. At least it won't have dates with it. Oh no. Okay. On the well, I had the date going, but it froze up again. Same. No, there is no waiting till Sunday. We've gone over this twice, Carol. Live looks like it's frozen, or at least the chat, but the time is still working. So I don't know. I'm hoping it works itself out. Hello, everybody in live. Yeah, I don't know if there were three different evacuation zones. Oh, I know. I can see that. But on my end, On the phone, it's frozen. I have 3 people watching. So even if they're not showing up in live, they're here. Which means they count. Hopefully they're having a good day. I don't know. I do not know. But that doesn't mean that the power can't be out. That's better. I think. Okay, it's working again. I don't know. $21, 2, 3. That's funny. Oh, stupid fingers. Anyway, I think I'm going to go. There's nobody else in live. So I'm going to go, I think. I will see everybody later. Have a good evening. I will see you guys tomorrow. Be good. Have fun. Good night, everybody.